Are your people-pleasing behaviors undermining your success? Hi, I'm Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions, and I am here to help you gain a happier and healthier life and build a successful, purpose-driven, meaningful life. And this week we're talking about interpersonal skills and these interpersonal connections and how relating to other people really is a major key to our success. Interpersonal skills is this connection with others. It's understanding how to make others feel validated, seen and heard, have a feeling and sense of agency. They feel safe and secure, and they feel valued and like they belong. All of our universal constructs. That is where things break down. It goes back to, go back to that video. It's going to be in links in the video description. So pop down there, get a bunch of great information, some good resources, and go back to the universal constructs video. What we're trying to do is understand that when that gets threatened, that we are on defensive. And we're constantly striving to find how do we get it back. And we're constantly in this feedback loop that we don't have it. And when somebody else gets into that, they're in the feedback loop. But something is missing and they need to protect. And we're missing an opportunity to engage with each other by honing in on trying to defend ourselves. People pleasing is a part of all of this. So when we looked at the negative dynamic, and we looked at kind of how it all played together, we had a chart that kind of came up, and you can see that that sense of need of value really connected very widely with attachment. It came in as this need to be seen and heard, need to be valued, need to belong, all connected to attachment. And as we were looking at those interconnections, what we found is that people really needed to people please to build these codependent relationships in order to feel confident that these universal constructs were either protected or that we were, there was a strong defense with it. And the understanding of what people-pleasing is this idea that we put other people's needs before our own. We are so desperate to know that they approve of us that we miss the mark on being able to give value for ourselves. So we will often say yes when we want to say no. We will often, overextend our boundaries in an effort to please and contend with others' needs. And so how does this have anything to do with our career and our success? And how does it really impact our leadership potential? Why can't I just be a nice person and everyone get along? Well, the reason is because it's neurological, and it's down at the core. It's at the core of our basic needs. And the reason that we are people-pleasing is because neurologically we are constantly on over-protection mode because there's this fear of ostracization. We're so afraid that if we set a boundary, if we say no, if we say not right now, that people are going to kick us out of the group and we will no longer belong, we will no longer have value, we will no longer be seen and heard, we will no longer be safe, we will no longer have agency. And ultimately, it's a perfect example of chaos comes in the wake of perceived control. People-pleasing is this idea of us creating a perceived control for ourselves of how we are protecting these universal needs, how we are keeping ourselves safe and secure, and ensuring that we are connected to a community. And what we don't understand is we are actually losing so much value for ourselves because of this assurance and this comfort that we seek to hopefully gain. And spoiler alert, external validators will not fill you. They will only make you feel more empty. And so what we have to do is ground and find the validation within ourselves so that we don't get lost in these external validators. And so a big part of what people pleasing does is it also combines and it interlocks with codependency. And as we found out a while ago, when we were looking at emotional regulation, we were looking at invalidating environments, we were looking at and exploring trauma bonds. Trauma bonds. People pleasing comes as a part of that. It is this need to overly engage with somebody else so that they create a codependency on you a mutual codependency on them. And that way you feel as if you have more security, you have something unlocked, that this person will always be there. But what you find is you just keep feeling like you give everything to everybody else and nobody is available to you when you need them. That is a people pleaser. That is why it doesn't work out. That is why there's no sum game within it. You're just fighting battles over and over again. That's why you can't create a leadership presence, is because you're not socially connecting in a way that is meaningful for you or anybody else. You're not aware. You're not in executive function. You're stuck in the amygdala, in this emotionally reactionary state. And when we talk about that river of life metaphor, people pleasing is when you are on the bank of suffering and despair and you think you're in Pooh's 100-acre woods. You're like, I'm doing well, I've got a fire, I've got food, I've got a cool house, like I'm doing well, I got all the things, external validator. I've got it all. I must be on the bank of value, strength, building, and growth. I've got everything I want. Bondage, it's not real comfort, it's not real security, or you wouldn't be living for somebody else's validation. So you think you're in Pooh's 100-acre woods, but you're really surrounded by heffalumps and woozles. You're in his nightmare. All of these things are not what give you affluence. It's what weighs you down and makes you feel like you have more that you, and then mindset. And so what we want to do is awareness, action, or awareness, acceptance, and action. 5 signs that you're sacrificing your goals, your success to please others is you say yes when you want to say no. You feel guilty about wanting to pursue your own dreams. You're constantly seeking validation of others. Is this good? Do you like this? Is this okay? Do you want to do this again? You avoid conflict at any cost. Any cost. You would rather cut off your own arm than go into a confronting situation, even if the conflict isn't that big of a deal. Even if you're just saying, I'm so sorry, my best friend, but you know, my sister is getting married. I can't not go to her wedding. I can't go to your bachelorette on the same day that my sister's getting married. That isn't very easily, I get it, right? But because of how difficult that conversation is and that desire to want to people please others, it's easy to get caught up in the turmoil and be like, oh, maybe I just won't say anything to anybody and they just won't notice that I didn't go anywhere. I ended up being so like cuffed in my bondage of who do I let down? And I can't let down anybody, that I decided to let everybody down. And how many times do we make that decision? Because no decision is a decision. It's a decision. And then the fifth one is you have no time for your own passions. How many times have you looked at your week, at your day, at your month, and think, man, when am I going to have time to do something for myself? I have no time for myself. I am rolling. I've got so much going on. I feel so overwhelmed. I've got so many things happening that I don't even know how I'm going to get done things that I need to get done. There's too many things happening. Those are 5 signs you're sacrificing your goals to people please, to let other people feel as if they have more priority and value than you. And so what we want to know is, and what we want to do is understand this dynamic. Understand that ultimately what we're doing is we're trying to protect ourselves, but we're doing it in a way that's actually creating more chaos, more disruption, and more despair. And so we want to gather the things that serve us. We want to get back into the boat and then decide, do we ride the waves or get off on the bank of value, strength building, and growth? Remember, life is all about a pivot and a growth mindset. So we're not saying, I should have done this and I could have done that. We're not. We're just being real with ourselves and knowing that every day is a day to move forward, that we don't ever look back because our past doesn't serve us. Only our present and our future serves us. And the intentional steps we take right now, right here now, are what make the difference. And only these intentional steps in the here and now are the only things that matter. Everything else will come out in the wash. We have no control over our outcomes. And a lot of the psychology behind these people pleasing is this idea about the brain treating social rejection as if it is physical pain. And so when it says saying no feels impossible to many leaders, it's because the same exact neurofiring is happening for creating physical pain and saying no and setting boundaries and feeling as if you are going to be rejected. It goes back to those universal constructs that because it's a closed circuit, so if one door opens means vulnerable, no bueno, then all of them open, right? And you are just exposed to all the elements. If you think about like a safe, comfy house, all the doors closed means everybody's locked up tight and secure for the night. But then the door flies open and the wind opens it up. A wrecking ball comes through one wall. Maybe the wind or a landslide knocks out 2 of the other walls. And you're really left with very little to feel as if you're safe in your house. Everything has been disrupted and you're constantly fighting for safety. That is the same firing that's happening when you are physically getting injured. And so it's really important to know that your capacity to influence others is directly proportionate to your ability to disappoint them occasionally. Let's say that again. Your capacity to influence others is directly proportionate to your ability to disappoint them on occasion. And what that means is that when you can set boundaries, people respect you. They trust you. They want to follow you. You don't give out. This happens a lot in, I guess, in the coaching mental health world, is that clients will want to go on more and more breaks, and that's good for them, right? It's good for them to have 2 weeks and a month between sessions. It gives them life experience and for them to apply all the concepts that we've learned together in our sessions. But then what happens is they start to get anxious towards the end, and they want to take 2 hours of your time in 1 week instead of an hour of your time once a week. And that dissonance means that they're not ready. They're not ready to go on their own. If they still need 2 hours of your time, then they need 2 hours of your time. And ethically, it's important for you to be able to charge for your time and for you to have those moments between appointments. And so, oftentimes as we are moving to a more maintenance state, it's understanding these needs and understanding that sometimes it's okay to go back to a weekly cadence. Sometimes increasing our appointments, especially in high stress situations, will help. But that we can't overstep our boundaries because we're in an overly distressed state. You wouldn't respect the relationship as much, and you wouldn't own and validate and honor and really value that relationship as much. And your therapist is going to also have difficulty because they're not being valued as much. And although it's a tabula rasa, there's reasons that there are ethics and codes put in place so that you can have that space freely, knowing that there is a monetary transaction that is happening so that somebody is doing their job to make you feel better. And then that time is compensated for. And oftentimes it feels like our ability to be present for others is greatly diminished because we care too much about what they think about us. And having a strong foundation is very important because it makes people want to come and speak to you more and engage with you more and be around you more. And so the more that you can let go of the fear, the more that you can have more processes out there, the more that people will come to you. And so there's a 3-step method that I teach all of my executives that break the cycle of people pleasing. And it doesn't damage relationships, it actually builds them up. And that's awareness, acceptance, and action. Recognize those patterns. Identify where and when to say yes, and notice those emotional triggers and those external pressures of what is forcing you to say yes versus when you actually want to say yes. And then set healthy boundaries. I like the bubble exercise because then you know what your space is and you fully occupy your space and you give your space a color. And when other people have their bubbles and they have their color, and the colors do not match, like they don't mix up. If I am blue and somebody else is pink, then we don't make purple in an interaction. We have equitable amount of blue and equitable amount of pink that are in the interaction. They don't, the particles do not mix. They don't mix. You just see little blues and little pinks all over the interaction. That's the point of clear boundary setting and interpersonal skills, is you're not blending, you're equally giving pieces of concrete space within each other. And then you're going to reframe relationships with mutual respect. Shift from this idea of trying to hunt or trying to seek validation or trying to chase or trying to have approval seeking to building these authentic connections, quality over quantity. And show up as a leader by balancing kindness with self-respect. The more value you have for yourself, the more that you are going to be valued by others. The more that you devalue yourself, the more that others devalue. Have you ever been in a house that is like absolutely pristine and you kind of like walk around like this? Like, I don't want to, you break it, you buy it, you're kind of like, and then you walk around in one that is like, you walk around like this, like, oh, I hope I don't touch anything. I feel like I'm getting like ill and germs just by like being around this stuff. And then you kind of walk around one that is kind of I say inhabited, right? It's a normal house that may have like maybe one dish in the sink, maybe one napkin or something on a table, or maybe a wrapper or something that hasn't been put away. And in that house, and everything closer to the walking around like I don't want to touch anything, you don't really have any conscientiousness, right? If you walk into a bar and it has peanuts on the ground, you're gonna throw peanut shells on the ground. And that's not your normal habit, but you do it because it's everywhere else, so you just kind of join in. And I know it's an aesthetic thing, and it goes with the territory of that's the kitsch of that restaurant or that bar. But the point is we do it all the time. When we see what's happening around us, we're going to emulate it. And so when people see that we are devaluing ourselves, then people are more likely to emulate it. You're a low-hanging fruit. And so they're more likely to pick on you. They're more likely to ask you to do more things. They're more likely to not set boundaries with you. It's what we do. And how we overcome all of this is we understand what it is that we're doing. We start with a vulnerability hierarchy and slowly expose ourselves to setting boundaries and saying no. We reframe how we look at engagement and what is the value, what's the return on investment. And I know that sounds really cold and harsh, and I don't mean like quid pro quo. I mean looking at life as an investment is how we find our value and our balance when we have these anxious propensities to hoard or overly engage. And so with back at the new year, I did the triangle of the language of discipline. And this really comes into it. People pleasing comes into this. We will restrict because we do too much, so we'll say no to everything, and then we'll be like, well, I can't stop saying no, so I might as well say it to everything. And then we try to avoid, and we get into our shame spiral, and we keep saying yes and yes and yes, and then we say no to everything, and then we say yes to everything, and it's just this constant battling that we're going through. And so we're trying to go from a pendulum to a metronome, and just finding our pace, setting intentions for what we want in our day, and if it fits in our day and we can get our stuff done and it doesn't really bother us, then say yes. And if it doesn't really meet any of our needs, then what's the point? Why are we engaging our time and our energy in something that doesn't meet our needs? It's kind of like giving a Corvette to a 3-year-old. It's great that you are capable of doing that, but it's actually devaluing that car. And it's doing nothing, it's giving nothing to that child. They don't know what to do with it. And so all you're doing is ransacking a very precious commodity that many people wish they had, for somebody who has no idea what to do with it. It's this devaluing that we do with each other because we are so afraid to set a boundary or to say no. And so, as you know, I have books on emotional regulation that talk about the universal constructs, those perceived realities, the spectrum of emotional regulation, even the grief beyond loss, setting up goals, vulnerability, atomic habits, building relationships, finding balance at work and leadership. I have groups that we talk about on Monday nights, young professional women. And we have a couples success group and masterclass. So if there's anything that you need in your growth journey, I am here and I'm available to help you. So go into the video description, click on the links, grab the resources, hit like if you like, share with others who may have people-pleasing behaviors that need help on, and let's work together. Join our journeys together on living a happier and healthier life.